actually in closed session. And so, Karen, do you want to review the teleconference protocol and then we will do the flag salute?
Sure. How about if it would be all right, why don't we do the flag salute first? Would that be all right? And then we'll go to the protocols. That would be okay.
Either way, that's fine.
All right. All right. So Kwai, how about we'll go to flag salute?
Sure, just a moment, please. There we go.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, Board President Molson, I'll move on to the protocol then in terms of just what we'll be looking at with our meeting and public comment when we're doing these Zoom meetings. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me just start with the protocol here. Is that we have been using this protocol. There have been a little bit of changes over time, but we know that in a Zoom conference, public comment can happen in different ways. So we wanted to clarify this for you. We're going to take public comment in 3 ways. One, public comment by teleconference, by phone, and then last by email. And if someone is making, chooses to make public comment, then public comment is limited to 3 minutes, 3 minutes. We'll try to kind of give you, if you're getting close to 3 minutes, just a signal to start wrapping up. And if, know that there is an email limit also in terms of the number of words. It's 450 words because that works out to about 3 minutes as well. So we will we'll work to make sure that we're monitoring time as we have public comment in some different ways. And I think what we'll do is we'll start with, and I wanted to share this, is that we'll have public comment that is tied either to report or action items. And then at the end of the meeting, there's time to make public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So I thought what we would do is we would start first with any public comment by teleconference first. So Kwai, I'm going to start with you. I know that we may have, you may have somebody who would like to make public comment. If you could please let us know the name of that person and the topic.
Ryan Montgomery regarding school reopening.
Okay. And then what I'd like to do for any other members of our audience who've joined us tonight, if you are on teleconference, not by phone, but teleconference, if you would go into the chat box and if you would please indicate that you would like to make public comment, please type your name and the topic area if you choose to do that. We'd like you to do that now so we can plan our meeting out. Okay, and Kwai, go ahead.
I do not have any other requests at this time.
All right. Let me ask now for members who are here tonight of our community, of our school system and community, if you have joined us by phone, you can unmute at this point, and so that we can get your name and topic area. If you could just, I would ask for your patience so we can just see who is joining us, who would like to make public comment by phone. If you would like to do that, then if you could please tell us your name and the topic area.
Am I free to go? Just wanted to ask in the
Ryan,
front.
is it Ryan? Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay, Mr. Montgomery. Just hang on. We'll let you know. But we've got you set. Thank
No,
you.
it's all
so
good.
much.
You guys have things to sort out. I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you. Kwai, anyone else just on phone?
No, I don't see anyone else requesting via phone. Everyone's still muted. They can unmute themselves if they want to speak via phone.
Okay. What about email? Emails that were sent to you by noon yesterday?
Yes, I have 2 requests via email to address the board. One from Catherine Harper and another from Liz Louise.
Okay. And those topic areas for those 2 areas are what, Kwai?
They are regarding schools reopening.
All right, thank you. We also have public comment from an employee, Jennifer Collier, on family well-being and strengths workshop. Thinking that could go with public comment at the end of the meeting. Board President Molson, yes? Okay, and then I think what our plan would be, if this will work for our board, is that once we get to the report item that is on schools reopening, that we'll make the report and then we'll move to the 3 public comments that we have.
Yes.
Very
That's the
good.
plan.
Okay,
All right, are we ready to dive in?
we're ready to dive in.
Okay, so first we have communications, Sacramento County Office of Education. We have the support for the House Heroes Act, and then response to the governor's 2020-2021 May revise.
Yes, we thank you. I included in for our board in your packet and other posted on our website as well, 2 communications that were developed in partnership with our Sacramento County Office of Education. Every superintendent in Sacramento County was a part of supporting and contributing to this letter with County Superintendent Dave Gordon. It's a letter that went to leaders at both federal and state levels about the very, very grim, challenging budget situation, the decisions that they will be making in terms of funding levels that will come to school systems in a time of extreme need to be able to serve children in a pandemic emergency, and the level of cuts not only in our district but in so many districts, not only in Sacramento County and beyond. We just wanted to include that letter so our board could see just the communication that was going on with legislators and others about the need to look at more funding for school systems for our district as well.
Thank you. Any board comment on that? Okay, nope. Okay. So then next would be the response to the governor's 2020-2021 May revise. Right, are they're 2 separate?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to LCAP Goal 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on here. Yes, you know what that is, I'm sorry, Board President, is that those 2 letters, one was for federal funding support. The second one, which was related to the May revise, went to state legislators.
Okay, so they're just letters. I gotcha. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now we're going to move on to LCAP Goal 1, and we're going to do the report first, and then we'll do the 3 public comments that I have written down.
Yes.
Okay, so schools reopening progress.
Yes, and again, we will start with the report, and then when our board is ready, we will move then next to public comment related to this report item. This is not an action item. This is a report item so that we could update our Board of Trustees, update you about our progress, challenges in this area. Last Wednesday night, you joined me and others in a very, very important study session. And that study session really zeroed in on two areas. That fact that we have a goal of reopening our schools. We want to reopen our schools in August. We want to do it safely and efficiently. We want to do it in a way that works within safety parameters, but is also supportive of feedback that we're getting. And so we spoke to you about our next steps related to that area. The second area during the study session had to related to budget development, that we are working to prepare a budget in June and a revised budget in August based on very, very challenging budget projections based on what the state is thinking will come to school districts in California. Those were the two areas. And since that Wednesday night where we provided information, there was board discussion and there was direction, I just want to acknowledge just staff and others that took the direction and next steps, and we are working as swiftly and as carefully and as thoughtfully as possible. On Friday, we were able to share information with parents about next steps in communications that went out, and at the same time, Claudia Del Toro Anguiano, our director of curriculum, worked with others, including board members and a student, to come up with a survey that we launched on Tuesday. And I'm going to ask our director of curriculum to talk about this, but I am so pleased with already the participation that we are getting with parents, with employees, with students in terms of getting us feedback around this very, very important area. So Director of Curriculum, Claudia Del Toro Anguiano, would you please talk to our board about the survey, kind of how that is going as of today?
So as Karen already said, we developed 4 surveys, one for parents, one for students, one for classified staff, and one for our certificated staff. All 4 surveys were launched yesterday. This morning, we ran reports on all 4 surveys, and this is what the preliminary, I'm going to say that again, preliminary reports show. Almost 680 parents had submitted a survey by 10 o'clock this morning. Around 70% shared that ensuring that their child's physical health and safety was their main priority, along with schools having a plan to ensure that there's a way to make up for a loss of learning. Almost 120 classified staff completed the survey. Over 70% shared that their main priority was also around ensuring that all safety and health protocols are in place before we open up schools. A total of 130 certificated staff completed the survey, and again, we're talking about just this morning. Many of our teachers shared that one of the most positive things with distance learning was the opportunity to learn about different resources and platforms that can help support learning. They also shared that one of the key challenges was holding children accountable for the work that they were submitting and their inability to provide individual support to children, knowing that kids needed help and they just couldn't do that. Happy to report that close to 400 students in grades 5th through 8th completed the survey. They reported that not seeing their friends was the thing that they missed the most. They also shared that working at their own pace and not having to get up early in the morning was what they liked most about distance learning. Many shared that in one way or another, not exactly with these words, but basically many of them shared that one of the most challenging things with distance learning was the isolation, the isolation that they feel by not being around others, not just their friends, but being around other people. They also felt that there were a lot of challenges that came with having to learn from a screen. Many of them share that they want a real person, they want paper and pencil, They don't want to learn from a screen. So know that the survey links will close this coming Tuesday around 4 o'clock. And then once the window closes, we will use the responses from all 4 groups to guide the development of a plan that will work for GALT's parents, GALT's children, and for our staff. So again, within less than 24 hours, we had a great response from all groups.
And when will the survey close?
Tuesday, June 2nd at 4.
Thank you. That's amazing that it's been open for 20, not even a little over 24 hours, and that many responses across the board from students to our teachers. So sounds like it's some good feedback moving forward.
Absolutely. I think it's important to hear from all groups, but it was most fascinating to read the student responses. And again, the one that stood out the most was the isolation that they're feeling.
Okay, so we've got more work ahead on this, and we do plan to post the results of the survey for district and school results after June 2nd. And then at the same time, you know, we'll be working with our principals, asking our principals to do some analysis work with the survey information as best as they can right now, because we have to work swiftly. And again, we want to do it in a way that is sensitive to feedback, and again, with the goal to reopen in August. I mean, that really is our plan. We want to have a plan to bring to you by mid-June, and by late June having the plan fully completed. I know that our county office with representation from every district is working also on some guidelines that maybe can help guide our process with what our plan looks like for GALT in some way. And that should be coming in early June. But again, we're not waiting for that. We've been, you know, we shared with you what we've been looking at, and now we're going to have some feedback that we can work from.
So I have a question, because I know that the looking at the timelines, so would the board be approving the plan then at the June meeting, or what is the protocol with that?
Well, I think that again, approval, not sure, but at a minimum, there certainly would be, again, bringing it. The thought was this, is that when we bring you the budget in mid-June to take a look at, that we would bring that plan as well in whatever form it's in. And again, we're working as swiftly as we can.
Right.
And at that point, similar, maybe in some ways, it's not an LCAP, that's for sure. But if we followed somewhat of an LCAP pattern here, because the thought is that we would post the draft plan, and even maybe as it's developing for people to take a look at as well. And it could be that it comes back then to the regular June board meeting for final approval. We could do it that way. There's not a requirement. But again, we're trying to work this through and be receptive to feedback along the way and keep you informed, you know, getting your feedback on this too along the way.
I just have some concerns with the timing. I really admire the hard, aggressive work that's being done by the district. I guess from my perspective, maybe I'm a bit naive, but you know, in 4 weeks, the guidelines could change. We're going through actually a pretty interesting change right now as more things are going to open up, including churches. I think churches is going to be a pretty interesting indicator, as well as amusement parks like Disneyland reopening, and whether there is a second wave, because obviously if there's a second wave that hits us at the end of July, then we're moving in some direction. And maybe for me and other folks, it might be helpful to have an understanding of what the structure of the guidance would be, whether it's a multi-tiered structure that if we're at this point, this is probably how we're going to approach it. If we're at, at this point, this, to where it's, there's higher numbers, or maybe when there's, the guidelines have changed from CDC, maybe at the end of June, because I would think, by 4 weeks before school opens in July, that plan should be solid, so that, so that could give you a couple extra weeks as opposed to, June 24th. I'm not sure what else is going to be on the agenda in June, how much discussion with the LCAP and the budget. I just want us to be thoughtful in knowing that, that there's a moving target here.
Yeah, that is the challenge on this, that's for sure. And I can't say it enough how important it has been that our stakeholders, our staff and students and parents are moving on and letting us know what they think. I think that will help us in terms of just what could work depending on what the conditions are. And we certainly, again, we want our families to be confident with the approaches that we're taking, or the approach, depending on what we have to work with.
Yeah,
it is a moving target.
You haven't heard, I know there's been conversations with the, area superintendents. I haven't really seen any research to say, help us understand, well, if someone is a carrier, are there any symptoms? Because people are obviously, concerned about contracting the virus. But I would, I'm not even sure if you're a carrier or not, showing symptoms, how is it the schools are going to be able to provide some level of protection, or to be proactive in identifying and separating students or staff, without knowing any indicators outside of, if a student has a high temperature, well, that could be, a dozen different things. It could be, the flu, it could be a cold, it could be this, and driving the level of hysteria when the student or a staff member has a high, temperature, and trying to mitigate this. I think it feels almost impossible for us to be safe proof, COVID proof, coming back outside of some of the things I think a lot of people are worried about, whether it's masks or other things, which, even those aren't necessarily 100%. So is there any research that you know about identifying what the characteristics, what a carrier might have?
I think the one of the things I'm looking forward to is the work that our public health officials did with the county guidelines, because I think that's going to help us with some of what you're bringing up there, John, about just, how is it that you would manage this? How would you manage this? How would you, be open and manage these things when it's just so much is not clear? And, really, could you require that, are there certain things that would just become a practice of families before they send their children to school, which are good practices to have, even if there wasn't COVID? It's like, does your child have a fever? Certain being very intentional and messaging the things that we all need to be doing. Don't come to work if you're sick. Don't come if you have a fever. Some of, again, what we're still getting as direction is, at this point in time, is to look at how you can look at classroom environments that support social distancing. How many children could we have in a classroom with social distancing requirements? How would we think about, say, precautions for staff as well, and not.
I think, Superintendent, I think that lies, pretty heavy burden on schools, because I don't think we're equipped to regulate or enforce social distancing as human beings. I think we're all social creatures, so I think it's going to be a bit tough for teachers, for staff to police, social distancing on the playground or walking, to school, and whether there's a fine line in which what we can do, because sometimes it's easy to fall off the track, and to where our purpose is to educate students, and if we get so much into trying to make everything safe, especially without having looking at $1.5 million budget reduction, probably needing to enhance or modify our hygiene and cleaning practices. And what does that mean? Whether it's buying portable sinks as students are washing their hands before they come into classroom, what that might be, which would be inside the guidelines. It's like I said, it's pretty ambitious. I think most of us on the board want to reopen the schools and have bring students back. It's understanding how is it we could do it in a way that's I guess as safe as possible.
Yes. Yeah. With the resources that we have or need to get. Yeah. We do have, there's some plexiglass shields that are in place now as a start in our district office as well, and in our school offices. These are just some things right now, and it's the other things that we're looking into, but it's much more than that, that's for sure. So, all right.
Those are some great points, John. Much appreciated. Is there any more board discussion, or should we go on to the public comments?
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Kwai, I'll go ahead and Kwai, I'll go ahead and start, I think, with our first, or Gracie, would you like to announce the first public comment? Would you like us to do it?
I have Ryan Montgomery, and then I didn't catch the names of the two other ones.
Yes.
So I apologize for that. But yes, we went to public comment. Ryan Montgomery, and remember, it's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello again, board members and members of the cabinet. I wanted to further speak regarding the plans for next year. I refuse to accept this as simply the new normal. This is a common buzz phrase that I hear these days. However, the new normal isn't taking the kids into consideration or their childhood. The new normal isn't considering what this is going to do long-term to a generation of our youth. We need to prepare these students and my own children to be ready for the real world. If we are ready to say, you must wear a mask and only go to school twice a week, then we have failed them. The new normal failed them. Our jobs as educators and as parents is to make sure that these kids grow and succeed with the tools we give them. Now, we've decided that we can put this on the back burner for a while. Meanwhile, most of the students in this district are not prepared for the next grade level they will go to in the fall. The new normal must be pretty puzzling and troubling from a kid's eyes. When they see that we can go to Walmart whenever we want, but they can't go to school, that tells them they aren't much of a priority. When they see packed Home Depots and Lowe's, but school isn't okay, how does that make any sense? For the record, I think all of them should be open. We can now go to restaurants, stores, salons, and just about any retail store, but not schools? This makes no sense at all. When I hear the buzz phrase, we are all in this together, that's a load of nonsense because the kids are clearly being left behind. Furthermore, the parents are being asked to choose between leaving their jobs behind or their kids behind unsupervised to fend for themselves to get a good education. That sure doesn't sound like we are all in it together. Students with special needs will be left behind. English language learners will be left behind. That's a tragedy. And kids whose parents are struggling to make ends meet will be left behind. Yet here we are with 13 cases and 0 deaths. We are still contemplating leaving our kids behind while the rest of Galt will most likely reopen in the next month. Our town should be open, and so should our schools. Those that do not want their children at school should be given the option of distance learning. There are dozens of families that reach out to me after last week's board meeting, letting me know that they too feel distance learning or going to school once or twice a week is not an option. For many students, school is the best thing to happen to them all day and their safe place. For some of these kids, this is how they get a hot meal. What are we doing here? In this community, there have only been 13 confirmed COVID cases and 0 deaths. We shut down to flatten the curve. It is time to stop living in fear. It is crippling our community and our state. I am more concerned about the mental health of our children and the uptick of suicides due to the isolating policies and economic disasters that our leadership has created. Parents must be given a choice. Whether it be masks or distance learning, we must be given a choice. Your actions in this district over the next month could be the demise of this school district. I myself have already begun the process of looking elsewhere in case you impose mandates on my children. My children have asthma. They can't wear a mask day after day for hours on end. I can barely stand wearing one for a half an hour in Costco. It's too much. Parents and employees want to know and deserve to know if you will mandate masks. How are you going to enforce this with students? I think it's unrealistic to think kids are going to follow arrows on the ground, wear masks, stay 6 feet apart at all times, not have recess, and be mindful of areas at schools taped off like a crime scene. What are we going to do when students
about
don't?
20 more seconds, Ryan, I'm sorry, about maybe
That's
20
fine, that's fine. What are we going to do when students don't follow these rules? Will we suspend them, tell them not to come to school? This is a public school district. I urge the school board to vote in favor of giving parents a choice in these matters and give a real voice in the decisions. I know not all of you were board members in 2008, but this board lost a lot of respect and trust from the community and district employees when the majority did not want Fairside Elementary or Greer closed. Ironically, the reason the district gave was closing Fairside because the facilities were unsafe for students. Yet here we are putting our youngest and most vulnerable preschool students there to be housed. Decisions in this school and this district are rarely made in the best interest of students and the community. The district seems to operate on dollars and cents and the fear of litigation. Our children and their education is priceless. Continued distance learning will create irreparable damage to this community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Thank you. And then we have our next public comment, and I do not have the name for that. I apologize.
Yes, I do. Board President Malson, the first public comment by email is from Catherine Harper.
Okay.
I'm a parent. I'll go ahead and read her email.
Okay. Thank you.
Dear members of the board, I am a parent of a current second grader, and I'm strongly in favor of the students returning to school in August with no distance learning or staggered schedules. I would urge the leadership to consider that when students are taken out of the classroom environment and expected to learn at home, there is absolutely no equity. While many of us parents are highly involved with our children's education, there are a number of parents who are unable, unwilling, or lack the skills and resources to work with their children. These kids are falling further behind and deserve an education every bit as much. To continue distance learning without a justified reason would be to fail these children miserably. We've asked our kids to sacrifice school, socialization, therapy, sports, graduations, and bodily freedom. In some cases, we have cost them their personal safety as they are trapped at home with abusers and no outside help. As we continue to learn about this virus, we need to take a more surgical approach and bring all kids back to school, since we know that in almost all cases, COVID-19 is not dangerous for them. Those who are most vulnerable need to take appropriate precautions and isolate themselves. As parents return to work, grandparents will be called upon to care for children who aren't in school full-time. Putting the burden of childcare on grandparents will cause them to be more at risk of contracting the virus if children can be asymptomatic spreaders. Much has been made about a vaccine. I would like to remind everyone, even with a vaccine, it takes years to eliminate a disease. A vaccine is not a magic bullet, as we have learned regarding the flu shot. Refusing to return to normal until we have a vaccine may mean that kids don't attend school full time for the foreseeable future, which is not acceptable. 13 total cases of COVID-19 in Galt to date cannot justify disrupting the education of our children, depriving them of normalcy, quality education, support, therapies, opportunities, and socialization that is critical to their development and mental health. Our children deserve better than a decision made out of fear. I would like to remind the leadership that Galt schools are not obligated to make the same decisions that Elk Grove and Sacramento choose. Please consider the unique circumstances of Galt, which makes a reopening plan. We have been impressed with Greer School thus far, but if the district chooses anything less than a normal schedule for the fall, we will be forced to transfer our son to Oakview. Thank you for this opportunity to comment. Sincerely, Catherine Harper.
All right. Thank you, Karen. And then we had one more email on this subject.
We do. This is from Liz Louise.
Thank you.
Dear board members in the Galt community, we are taking this opportunity to voice our opinion about the reopening of school this fall. We believe that school should resume this fall in exactly the same capacity that we have always known it to be. 5 full days a week with 0 social distancing precautions or restrictions put into place. Distance learning should only be an option for those families, children, teachers, staff, and high-risk individuals who choose to participate in it, not a district-wide solution. We also need to remember that we live in Galt, not Elk Grove or Sacramento. We are a much smaller community with our own unique and individual needs to consider. We should not always be following the same restrictions and guidelines of the larger communities that surround us. We need to think as an individual city. It is absolutely and utterly unreasonable for you to expect parents to be forced to make a choice to go to work every day, to provide for their families, or to stay at home and teach their children. We are not trained teachers. At this age, our children will never be driven or self-motivated enough to be able to learn alone in front of a screen. They need the physical structure of everyday school life. We will fail our children if we stick to these methods 100% across the board. Parents will ultimately return to work every day as they should, leaving their children to fail not only intellectually, but also mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically in many situations. This is not the next generation that we're supposed to be bringing up and building up. There is nothing more concerning to us of the prospect of what these kids will become because the option of physically going to school every day was taken away from them. Distance learning will never be a successful way to learn and should never be mandatory, only a choice for those willing to learn in this capacity. With our opinion now being voiced, if school does not resume in exactly the same manner in which we left it in March, we will be removing our daughter from the district. Thank you for your time, Daniel and Liz Louise.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more public comment on this communication report?
No, there's no further public comments at this time.
Okay, I appreciate the time that everyone took for the public comments. So now we're going to move on to other, which is a California state budget update.
Yes, and I would like to begin this and then segue to our Director of Business Services, Lois Yount. We last week publicly spoke to the challenge that we're facing of up to $1.6 million in reductions. There's been more work that we've done in this area, conversations with Sacramento County Office of Education, who also are a part of examining our budget as we develop it further and bring it to the board by mid-June for approval consideration in last June. As more than one board member has brought up, we want to reopen our schools. We are very, very challenged with resources. We have already made reductions of $600,000 in this school year. This is the 3rd year of reductions, and it's not enough. So Lois Yount, would you please transition us into a report on the May revise and new information that you have.
Sure. Good evening. Kauai's going to pull up a PowerPoint for you. I will be sharing with you some slides and some information based on the May revise that we received at the school services workshop just a couple of weeks ago. I have a lot of slides to go through, but some of them are going to be very quick. I wanted to start by just, the May revise, where we're at right now. It's the budget information that we have at this point right now for 2021. It's the data points that we are using to develop our budget, the budget that we'll bring to you in June. We are expecting many changes between now and August, and so that's what makes it difficult right now developing a budget at this time with so many uncertainties. There will be another budget workshop after the final budget has been adopted in June, and it is anticipated that we will have a revision in August as well. So I will go ahead. That was my first slide, so I already went over that. So we'll go. So just a couple slides on really what COVID-19 has done to our nation and California fiscally. I thought this was an important slide. You see there the Great Recession, this shows you the gross domestic product, which that the GDP gives us a good economic snapshot for the US. And in the Great Recession, the lowest that the GDP went down was a negative 8.4, and that was in 2008. Right now, if you look over to the far right, for the first quarter of 2020, the US GDP was a negative 4.8. And they are projecting that the next quarter, end of July, it could be as low as negative 42.8. So they are anticipating that for the next year, this could hit us much harder than the recession did in 2008. So the next slide, Kauai, is just a quick look at the COVID impact for California. And if you look at that last bullet, right now it's projected that the state will have a shortfall of $54 billion because of the pandemic. Where will we be? The big question is how much this budget will change and if there will be revisions. The two big factors that play into this are the unemployment changes, employment rate changes that we may see between now and August, or even when the budget is adopted. And the other big factor is the personal income tax revenue. That is a huge revenue source for the state budget, and we will not know that revenue until July. So due to those two factors, we are projected to have a revise in August. So what does this mean for Prop 98? What does it mean for the education funding? The next slide shows us what is projected right now at this point based on Prop 98 funding. If you look at 2021, what was projected at the governor's January budget, it was projected that Prop 98 would give us $84 billion. And as of now, it is projected that we would receive $70.5 billion for education, which is a $14 billion hit deficit for education, just under Prop 98 funding. The next slide will show you what we're anticipating for COLA. The statutory COLA ended up being a 2.31, but it doesn't mean the state has to fund us at that level. Right now, the COLA is projected to be flat at 0, no COLA. And a few slides later, I'll even show you the deficit factor that we are planning for. It's worse than a 0% COLA. We'll go to the next slide. Something that we are planning for are deferrals. We heard this and we lived this in the last recession, but here we go again. We're planning for state deferrals as soon as next month, June 2020. Hopefully we will just be deferred for 1 month, it's about $3 million for us that we will be deferred, and hopefully we will get that payment in July instead of June. Thankfully, we will be okay with cash flow from June to July of this fiscal year, but it is projected that deferrals will continue into 2021, and that April, May, and June, those 3 months, we may be deferred all the way until July of 2021. If that happens, we will have a cash flow issue. We will not be able to pay bills, and we will be taking TRAN again. So we took up trans in this last recession, and we are already talking with SCOE on a TRAN pool that we can pull together with the other districts in our county, because we are not the only ones that will need a TRAN if deferrals happen that way next fiscal year. Something positive, I think there was one slide maybe before this, Hawaii. Oh. One got cut out. Well, there is something positive with this May revise is the pension buy downs. We are anticipated to receive an additional or save about $500,000 because the governor right now is proposing that the state would buy down more on pension. So it will change our employer contribution rate for both STRS and PERS, so that will help us at about $500,000. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide there. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're facing right now. So not only are we at a 0% COLA, if you see there, what they're doing in this formula is they're funding us there at a 2.31% COLA. You can see that. But then they're taking a 10% reduction. You see the highlighted part there. So when you equate this to the COLA that we should get, but then a 10% reduction, we're actually facing a negative 7.92 COLA. And there is a disclaimer there that hopefully this could be triggered off if the federal government provides additional funding to backfill these cuts. But right now, for the this next year and the next 2 years out, we are projected a negative 7.92% COLA. Go ahead and go to the next slide there. That will go ahead to the next slide. Something that was not in the May revise, but something that the governor could do to help us a little bit. The governor can pause the minimum wage increase. Right now, minimum wage would increase by $1 more to $14 an hour in January of 2021. We have met the economic criteria where he could pause this for a year, so we will see if that will come out in his June budget. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Special education, something that is the same as January budget, is an increase to special education that would go right to SELPAs. It wouldn't go to your district, but it would go to SELPAs, and then they would get it out to LEAs based on the formula. It's not a huge increase. It's raising the base to $645 per ADA. And right now our SELPA is already funded at about $540 per ADA. So it would be, to get our SELPA to that 645 rate, it would be an additional $100 per student. So that could help us. But again, it would go straight to SELPAs, and then they would divvy that out, allocate that to LEAs. So we can't budget for that. We don't know if that will stick in the June budget, and plus we don't have a dollar amount to budget for that. We can go to the next slide. So not only are we getting cuts to LCFF, there's some categorical program cuts that are also taking a decent hit. The ones on here for us are the after school education and safety program. That's our ACES. We are projecting an 18% decrease in our ACES program. And then also the CTE tech grant. We don't have a dollar amount yet for that, but that program will also take a hit with this budget. Go ahead. Something positive, something that's helping us out, something that is reducing our deficit is the federal stimulus, the CARES Act. Under the ESSER, the school emergency fund relief there, the $1.65 billion, we are receiving $1 million. And that is already in our budget. We're planning for that for next fiscal year. So that is helping offset this 10% decrease. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Something else that could help us, the governor still has $4.4 billion of CARE Act federal money that has not yet been allocated to districts. This is very controversial right now, and a lot of discussion at the Capitol on how this will be delegated or allocated to LEAs. It could go to LCFF. It could go to you based on your Title I students, and it could go to you based on your supplemental and concentration students, or even students with disabilities. If it goes to the LCFF base, then it waters the money down somewhat, because then all districts across the state will receive the funds. What would be better for us if it comes to districts based on your Title I allocation? We would receive more money if it comes that way. So we have to just wait and see on that. We can't budget for it yet because we don't know the dollar amount. We also don't know the strings attached on how we can spend those funds. And they do have to be spent by December 30th of 2020. And it's just one-time money as well, federal funds. So hopefully that will help us. The big unknowns still are the additional federal funding. There's some other bills in motion right now. Of course, our Governor Newsom, he's been aggressively lobbying federal government for additional $1 trillion in aid. We'll see if that comes to happen. And also there is the HEROES Act that could possibly give $3 trillion, and $60 billion of that could go to K-12 school districts. So we will see how the federal government steps in here. Some other flexibility that we're hoping that we will see in the June budget. It's not there yet in this May revise, but it's something that was there back in the last recession that could help us. We're hoping that they will extend ADA hold harmless that was provided in 1920, and hopefully that will be extended to 2021. They possibly could reduce or suspend our 3% contribution to our routine restricted maintenance. That would free up some general fund if they reduce that, and possibly some flexibility in the use of supplemental and concentration grant funds. Those are some areas the governor could give us some flexibility to help us get through this. So what will operations look like the next few months? Go ahead and go to the next slide there. You have this dartboard, you have this in your board packet. Again, just wanted to highlight the deficit factor. It's the second column there. So you can see really the next 4 years out, the multi-year budget that we are working on right now. You see that negative 7.92 is what we are projecting right now. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Just want to share some information on the reserve. Average, this was in 18-19, average unrestricted general fund plus your ending balance for elementary district was around, average about 20%. At second interim, we were at 5.2% with our ending fund balance and our restricted and unrestricted. So we're definitely, our reserve is definitely lower than the average. I know we've talked about that. I know we've been working on that. So go ahead and go to the next slide there. So where we at, we have to work together. We need the support of our collective bargaining units. Unless our employee groups, help us here and they acknowledge the problems that we're all facing, and help us come up with solutions to solve this problem. And hopefully it's a short-term problem. There's little that we can do without, we don't want to eliminate jobs. We don't want to eliminate jobs. And so we are hoping that we can work together with our unions to come up with a plan together to keep our people. Will there be a certificated second layoff window? The loss of revenue is definitely there to trigger that. we'll just have to see what happens the next couple of months and see if that is blocked at the House or not. And if we have to go that far and look at layoffs in August. So next steps, the last couple of slides here for us. You know, we have a bumpy road ahead. Again, you know, the legislature has to approve the budget by June 15th, or they risk suspending their own pay. And then our governor must act on the budget and sign the budget by June 30th. And so there's timeline there. And what does this mean for us? Last slide here as we close. You know, last week we were looking at closer to 1.6 million in reductions. I think that we're looking at 1 million to 1.5 million. I think it could go as high as 1.5 million. Hopefully not. Hopefully it will stay even below that million. But based on what we know right now, we have to plan for at least 1 million. We are working closely with SCOE on what a June budget approval will look like from our county. It's very different right now than what we normally are going through, and the process that this county would take to approve districts' budgets for June. They're looking at some conditional approvals, knowing that most of us will not make our 3% in our multi-year projections. The county is looking at your reserve level. They're looking at your history of deficit spending. And they're doing somewhat a personalized approach to work with districts to determine what kind of reductions they want to see between now and June or July to make 3% for next year. We will need to find $500,000 in reductions these next few weeks so that we could show SCOE that you won't go bankrupt. Then we will need to also provide for them with this June budget. We will need to provide them a list of reductions of about $1 million that would take place in August if the state budget does not improve. So worst case scenario, if things don't improve, and timelines to when those reductions would take place. Careful monitoring of cash flow. We're having to monitor cash flow daily. And so we know when we're getting to the point that we can't make payroll and we have to take out loans. I already mentioned that we are preparing to take up trans for next fiscal year. And then we need to partner with our employee groups to come up with a plan and work through this together. That's where we're at right now. And again, you know, many changes coming in the next few weeks with this budget, hopefully for a positive. Any questions?
Hey, Lois, I have a question. Regarding trans, what typically do terms look like on trans loans, like amounts, interest rates, things like that?
Mm-hmm. You know, I know that I worked with our fiscal supervisor. We went back and looked at some of the amounts of how large our trans were when we took them out back in the recession. It looked like we were taking trans out between about $5 and $6 million to cover, you know, payroll. Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you what the interest rate was. I know our county is looking at trying to get us better interest rates by pulling together what they call a tran pool, so that if there's multiple districts that need to take out a tran, and if we get together and do this, hopefully we will get better rates.
What about the duration?
Well, the duration is as soon as the state pays you back. So basically we have to borrow until the state can pay us. And so, for example, the first tran that we would probably have to take would be around April. And the state is saying they would have to we would take an IOU from the state for about 3 months. So as soon as the state paid us, say we had to start borrowing in April, if they paid us in July, then as soon as we got our payments from the state, we immediately pay back our tran. So you're
Plus
only,
interest.
yes, plus interest. Yes, so you're paying your interest, but you're only borrowing until the state pays you. And then once you get paid, you pay your loan right off.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I just always have a little bit of concern with some of the flexing that they do with categorical, well, not called categoricals anymore, but especially with the routine maintenance. And, you know, we ran into that with the recession. I think a lot of California school districts passed bonds to pick up, you know, to make up for all the years that they weren't able to maintain their schools. So I hope if it comes down to that, that we give this a lot of consideration, especially after we've used Measure K, you know, to modernize it. I hate to go back to where the conditions of the schools are not kept up, and then we can never get caught up. So.
Yeah, and we'll see. Right now, that's not in the May revise as even an option, but we'll see what happens in June.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? No? Okay, and I know we have a public comment on this, correct?
Quite, I don't believe so. Would that be, I don't think we do.
No, I do not have a public comment related to this item.
Oh, okay. I thought we did. All right. Then if not, then let's go on to the William Uniform Complaint Process Quarterly Reports.
Yes, this is for the quarterly report reflecting January through March. There were no complaints for the required areas of textbooks, school facilities, or misassignment of teachers.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's go on to the recommended action, routine matter, new business. Do we have any donations?
We do. We do have a donation. I'd like to recognize the donation of the Family Life Christian Church, donated $2,379.98 to the Food and Nutrition Department towards lunch debts at Lake Canyon, River Oaks, and Marengo Ranch Elementary School. Given everything that's going into making our meals work in this emergency, that was a very wonderful donation to receive.
That was a very generous donation to receive. So thank you to the Family Life Christian Church. Much appreciated. Okay, if there's no other discussion on the consent calendar, do I have a motion to approve it?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Kauai?
Yes, the motion, John made the first motion. Matthew Felix made the second motion. Grace Mawson?
Aye.
Tom Silva?
Aye.
Wesley Cagle?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next agenda item is board consideration of approval for Resolution 14, establishing social distancing protocols and authorizing the superintendent to take action to maintain construction project sites as safe work environments. Ooh.
All right, thank you. So school construction projects are essential governmental activities. And so our one active project at River Oaks has still continued on. We have not stopped that project through this closure. But it is recommended that we adopt a resolution like this, just so we are showing the community that we are being responsive to state and county mandates, really that we are following health and safety guidelines related to this pandemic. So what we have outlined with this resolution, Exhibit B has protocols, templates, and procedures that our one contractor right now is using. That's S&B James at River Oaks Elementary. It has a template that they have completed for the project. It has some samples of some of the signage they use and some of the procedures and safety measures that they have been practicing since day one of this closure at River Oaks. And the system, everything has been in place prior to even working on this resolution. And what we also included in Exhibit A, we included the names of the project, of course, River Oaks. We also included McCaffrey Track and Field Project. We'll talk about that later as an action item. But if the board, if we do end up moving forward with that project, we want to make sure that we have this resolution in place to start that as well. Might not even be on a closure necessarily if, you know, during that time, but just in case, that is the only other project that's in the works that we might start potentially during this closure. But S&B James has done a great job with safety in all areas out there, and you know, they're ensuring that all of their subs, their contractors are following these procedures as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the board? No, it's pretty cut and dry. Appreciate the effort. So if there's no discussion, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 192.086? I saw Wes's hand. Is that a? Okay, so we have Wes. Anyone
I'll
second?
I'll second.
Tom. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion from Wesley Cagle, second from Tom Silva. Grace Molson,
Aye.
John Gordon,
Aye.
Matthew Felix.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the next action item is 192.087. Board consideration of approval of leaseback pre-construction services agreement with S&B James Construction, California Incorporated for McCaffrey Middle School.
Okay. Well, we advertised, we put a bid out for contractors about a month ago for the McCaffrey Track and Field project, and we had a mandatory site walk with that proposal, with that bid. And we had 5 contractors that actually showed up at McCaffrey and showed an initial interest in bidding on the project. But after the 2 weeks, we only had 1 proposal that came in. S&B James Construction Management, they were the only ones that submitted a proposal. And so we didn't have to go through the rating scale and process that we normally go through because we only had 1 proposal. I think if we didn't have a relationship with S&B James, and if we didn't know their product, their quality, their workmanship, their timeline, their cost management, if we didn't know that about them already, we probably would have gone out to bid again to try to see if we'd get anybody else to make a proposal. But since we have had such great success and relationship with them, I feel that we could go ahead and move forward with that. This is just the pre-construction services contract. So what that means is if the board approves this, it gives them permission at a fee of $2,500 to go out and provide the pre-construction services, which would pull together their subs, and they would come up with a construction timeline for us, and they would come up with a guaranteed maximum price. That's when we would bring that back to the board in another month with the full leaseback contracts. And at that time, I think if we saw that the cost wasn't what we can afford, or the cost or the timeline, you know, within their contract, if it didn't look like it would work for us, we could choose the option to go out and advertise again to see if we could find another contractor. I don't feel that that would happen based on, I think we're about finishing our third project with SMB James now, and we haven't had any of those problems, but that is an option. Again, this is just the pre-services contract. It's not getting into the full GMP contract with them. So with this, I do want to just clarify too, this project would not be funded with Measure K funds, and it would not be funded with routine maintenance or anything related to general fund. It would be funded with JPA developer fees, or Melrose fees, excuse me, and the bulk of this would be paid with developer fees. We have a little over $2 million in developer fees, and you can't use developer fees to offset your general fund. You can't even use developer fees for your routine maintenance and repair. You have to use them on identified construction or reconstruction projects, which includes athletic fields. We have made sure that we've got legal counsel on this just to make sure that this project falls under how we can spend developer fees, and just to make sure that, there's no legislature out there that would allow us to use these funds for general fund purposes. And so I know that's probably a question or a concern based, especially with the difficult times we're facing right now. So I wanted to clarify how we would pay for this project.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So that way there's no confusion, because it's hard to say we have this budget issue and then we're going to go build this beautiful field. So I appreciate that clarification. And so with that said, is there any discussion or questions from the board? No? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve, where are we at here, 192.087?
I'll move to approve item 192.087, Grace.
Okay, I'll second it.
Thank you. Matthew Felix made a motion. Grace Mawson seconded. John Gordon?
Aye.
Tom Silva?
Aye.
Wesley Cagle? I assume Wes said aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next action item is item 192.088. Board consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between the California School Employee Association and its Galt chapter number 362 and the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District.
Right. I want to say that I want to acknowledge the leadership and membership of CSCA in terms of how swiftly the first MOU was crafted. Like 3 days after we had closed schools and were moving into the early stages of the pandemic emergency, we reached an agreement with CSCA. And that was important to moving forward so that our services would be the best they could in an emergency period for children and families across this community. What happened is within that MOU, there was within the agreement that we would revisit the agreement over time. And because there have been changes in the conditions since we originally developed the MOU, that the MOU was amended. And what it reflects is that in the agreement, there was added pay for essential employees that had happened. That now has been removed from the MOU. It will not continue at this point. And the fact that California right now is progressing through reopening, that we are much further along in terms of the health precautions that are in place to support our employees in this very uncertain time. And now we have growing budget challenges that we did reach this agreement to amend the MOU for board consideration tonight.
Great, thank you. Any questions or discussion from the board on this? No, I want to thank CSCA for their hard work back when all this happened and coming to an agreement very quickly. And you know, we're getting through it. We're almost there. So with no further discussion, do I have a motion to approve 192.088?
Move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Thank you. I have a motion from John Gordon, second Matthew Felix. Grace Molson,
aye.
Thomas Silva,
Aye.
Wesley Cagle.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is a public hearing, 192.09, or I'm sorry, 089. And this is on the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District to receive public testimony and input from members of the community on the adoption of the Sacramento County Special Education Local Plan Area, which is the SELPA, and the Local Education Area Assurances and Section B, Governance and Administration pursuant to Education Code Section 56205. B2.
Yes, thank you.
Ooh,
And
that's a mouthful.
That is. And before I transition this to Donna Mayo Whitlock, I wanted to share that our district is a member of the SELPA for special education as a consortium. And, you know, there have been changes over time in the SELPA membership. We now, Twin Rivers along with Natomas are no longer in our SELPA, but there is a charter through Natomas that now is. So the makeup of our SELPA.
Cody, I'm talking in about 30 seconds. Excuse me. Oops. I'm so sorry.
The makeup of our SELPA has changed with the two districts that have been removed, that are no longer in the SELPA. And so there is, again, a requirement that we have regarding the governance that takes place within the SELPA. And I'm going to turn this to Donna Mayo Whitlock concerning the SELPA that have information that was posted on our website and before we get into public comment.
I apologize. I didn't have my on mute. You know what, Karen, you froze right now. Can you hear me all right? Can you let me know?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been having a little bit of connectivity issues. So what you have for the public hearing, it has been posted on our website. We have the governance. It's the description of the governance descriptions. It contains the SELPA policies, procedures, as well as practices. And these are all established according to Education Code. After public hearing, upon approval by the LEA, the Sacramento County of SELPA will submit the SELPA governance along with the assurances to the California Department of Education. I did just want to kind of just review that the function of the Sacramento County area SELPA is to provide a quality educational program appropriate to the needs of each child with a disability who resides in our local plan area, and to also other individuals who reside in other SELPAs who may need our services. Approving this plan means that we will enter into an agreement with all of the other 7 LEAs participating for the provision of services. And in your the board packet is the local education agency assurances. And then you also have a copy of the Section B governance description of the plan. do you have any questions?
Nope, I don't. So I'm going to open it up for the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
And may I just ask just for a second, because of our Zoom conference, Kawhi, I'm going to just turn it to you for a second. Any phone or any comments that are you seeing anything on messaging on that?
Karen, Grace, no, there's no public comment request for this public hearing.
Thank you.
I did want to just add one more comment about the development of this, the plan and the government's administration, is that every LEA was represented in the development of this plan. And Kuljit Nijar, who serves and supports our special education as an administration, was a part of the development of this plan.
Sorry, my distraction over there. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go on to the action item for this, which is 192.090. And is there anything that you'd like to add? And or any of the board members have any discussion or comments?
Just a board approval is recommended.
Okay, if there's no discussion, do I have a motion to approve 192.090?
I'll make the motion. Go ahead, John.
Okay, so you have Wes.
Thank you. Wes Cagle made the motion. John Gordon seconded. Grace Molson?
Aye.
Thomas Silva?
Aye.
Matthew Felix?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, the next action item is 192.091. Board consideration of approval of resolution number 15 to reduce or eliminate classified staff due to lack of work.
Okay, as it states in the background, we do have 3 positions that we're bringing to you for reduction due to lack of work. We have a special education instructional assistant. The position is vacant. The student is matriculating to the middle school and into a program where he has the needed support. The second position is another 6-hour instructional assistant in special education. That position is vacant currently, and the student is matriculating to the high school district. The last position that I have for your consideration for reduction is 1 6-hour bilingual instructional assistant position is at McCaffrey Middle School. The position is currently vacant, and this is one of 2 positions that serves newcomers, but currently for the upcoming year, there are only 3 newcomers enrolled, and our other bilingual instructional assistant will be able to provide the support needed. Board approval is recommended for these 3 reductions. Do you have any questions?
I got a question. So say in 2 months, students show up and then we need another instructional assistant. Would you come up, would you just bring a motion to us again with to hire somebody new, or does this just get backfilled?
When we do have the need, and this does often happen with special education instructional assistants, as during the year when we do have IEPs and the needs of the students, for example, of a one-to-one or additional support, we would be able to post and we would rehire. At this point, the 3 positions are vacant. so that it does not involve the layoff of any employees. But we would, Wes, we would create a new position at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, if not, then do I have a motion to approve 192.091?
I'll move
I'll
to
move to
approve item.
approve. Oh, go ahead,
Tom.
Matt. Rock,
We have
paper, scissors.
Matt and then Tom.
Yes,
That's
so
fine.
Matthew made the motion, Tom seconded. Grace Mawson,
Aye.
John Gordon,
Aye.
Cagle.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Right, thank you. Okay, and then we have 192.092, which is the first reading of the BRAR 3413.3 tobacco-free schools.
Okay, what we have is, this is the first reading, and it's proposed revisions and additions to our current 2008 tobacco-free schools board policy that was adopted. And these revisions and additions are coming to you. They are CSBA, and they're also recommended by our county office of education. The reason that we're bringing this to you at this time is because any time that we would like to in the future, if we would like to apply for any of the TUPE, the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Grants, that school districts need to be in compliance and certified by submitting to the California Department of Education, and they must have a current adopted board policy. We have brought this to you because our extended learning supervisor, Jennifer Collier, has been working with our county office of education to help get us certified, because there currently is a small TUPE grant that will be coming up, and we plan to apply for it. And that grant, although it may only be $2,000, would go to support the Wellness Center at McCaffrey Middle School for tobacco education and cessation education for the students in the Wellness Center. So bringing this to you at this time for the first reading would mean that we would, if this were to be adopted at the next board meeting, would mean that we would now be in line for the TUPE future grant funds. And you have some more background about the other things that we need to do in order to be certified. And we're working with the county office on that as well. It's exciting though, because some of these grants, although the first one may be $2,000 that we're applying for, some of these grants could be a lot more funding.
Good.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board on this? No? Okay. I know we do have public comment if we're moving on to G. And then is there any more public comment, Kauai?
No, there's no other public comment at this time.
Okay, I thought we had a public comment from Jennifer Collier.
Oh, we do. I'm sorry. I thought you, yes, we do. Jennifer Collier.
Okay, yes. No, I'm sorry. I asked in a confusing manner. I apologize.
That's okay. Jennifer, there you are. Hello. Let's unmute you. There you go.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I wanted to extend an invitation to you. I will be hosting and providing a family well-being and strengths workshop on June 15th, 17th, and 19th. This is a free workshop to families and kids. We're going to be taking some time to talk about those things that we're best at that contribute to our well-being and social emotional learning, relationship, and some hope building just activities and fun. So this is a free opportunity, and I look forward to just including everyone. This registration will open on June 1st. This is going to be an online registration, and so look forward to that in your email, via text and social media. Thank you.
Jennifer, are these going to be online Zoom courses?
Yes.
Or in person?
These will be virtually by Zoom, so it might actually look a lot like this. And we will have a chance to really delve into those things now more than ever. We are really needing an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? This is really an amazing, special thing about you, your talent and your strengths that we bring into our families as we are just navigating new things and growing. And really some of the great strengths opportunities I've had in the classroom. The Zoom classes are, we do some hope building activities, really helping kids practice what it means to be hopeful and think about those good things in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, and then we have our pending agenda items. And if there's nothing else, is there any more discussion? Wes, I see you raising I see you.
Yeah. Question. With everything opening up and us being in phase like 2.5, can our next board meeting possibly be in person?
It's a great question.
We will see what, you know, what we can do. We will see what we can do.
Don't get me wrong, I love hanging out in shorts and being here, but I do prefer being at a physical place with everybody else at our meeting.
Yeah.
No, I agree. A little less distractions.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Even if it's not at City Hall, we'll see.
Right, because we also have to adhere to the social distancing protocols of 6 feet, correct?
So these are things
Have it at like the Shabola Center. No.
Yeah, we would need to be looking at that. Yeah. Yeah, because of again the participation also of others.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, but that is
we'll
great
keep
question,
monitoring and see what we can do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, if there is nothing else from the board, looking at you two, Matt, you guys good? All right. Well then, we are adjourned.
Bye, guys. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.